Welcome back, deep divers. Get ready to explore a world of ancient stories that still pack a punch thousands of years later. We're diving into 2 Kings, chapters 4 through 6.
We're talking miracles, mayhem, even a unfortunate stew.
I am so ready for this. Let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
This first section, it's all about Elisha and this incredible power of provision. It's about finding hope, even when things seem impossible. Like, take the story of this widow who's drowning in debt.
And debt back then, it wasn't like today. It could mean like losing everything, your home, your kids even. It was a whole different ballgame.
It's brutal. And all she has left is this one little jar of oil. Just one. Can you imagine the pressure? I mean, that feeling of just hitting a wall, resources running out. It's a story that I think still resonates today, right?
Absolutely.
And what does Elisha do? He doesn't just bail her out. He gives her this challenge, almost like a riddle. He tells her, go gather as many empty jars as you can.
He's pushing her, you know? It's not just about finding containers. It's about her mindset. She has to look beyond what's right in front of her, trust in something bigger. The miracle's not just the oil. It's her taking that leap of faith.
And that leap, it pays off. Literally, she sells the oil, wipes out her debt, and actually secures her family's future. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes we just need to see what we already have with new eyes, you know?
Totally. And speaking of unexpected provisions, that takes us right into the story of the Shunammite woman. Now, she embodies hospitality, which in ancient times was a huge deal.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't just being polite. It was about survival, right?
Right.
Especially for travelers. They depended on the kindness of strangers.
Exactly. Offering hospitality, it was like a sacred duty, but also risky. You were vouching for this person you brought into your home. The Shunammite woman, though, she embraces it completely. She even builds Elisha his own little guest room.
And as the story unfolds, we discover there's this deep longing in her heart. She can't have children. It's Elisha, recognizing her generosity, who prophesies that she will have a son.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The son arrives, her dream come true, but then, out of nowhere, tragedy hits. He dies suddenly. It's a stark reminder that life can throw these curveballs, even when things seem perfect.
I can't even imagine the pain. But in her grief, she doesn't give up. She goes straight to Elisha. She believes he can help.
She's not looking for comfort. She's looking for another miracle. And Elisha, moved by her faith, he stretches himself out over the boy's body, and unbelievably, the boy comes back to life.
Wow. Just wow. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, restoration is possible. But get this, our next story. It takes us from a resurrection to something much more, well, earthly. A poisoned stew.
Picture this, famine. Everyone's starving, including Elisha's followers. They're making this big pot of stew. Seems simple enough, right? But then somebody adds the wrong ingredient, a poisonous gourd.
Talk about a recipe for disaster. It's easy to forget how dangerous something as basic as cooking could be back then. But leave it to Elisha. He's got this.
And he doesn't need some grand spectacle. He asks for flour, just plain old flour. Tells him to throw it in the pot, and that's it. The poison's neutralized.
It makes you think, right? We often think of miracles as these big flashy events, but maybe they're also in the everyday, the simple solutions we find when we need them most.
It's like miracles can be hiding in plain sight if we just know how to look. And sometimes it's about shifting our whole perspective. Like with that story, the lost axe head.
Oh yeah, that one's relatable. Guy's chopping wood, axe head goes flying, lands right in the river,
Yeah.
gone. And to make it worse, he borrowed the axe.
It wasn't just an axe, though, was it? It represented his livelihood, his ability to provide. Losing that back then could be devastating.
Totally, you can feel the panic. But Elisha, he doesn't even flinch. He doesn't go diving in after it. He just grabs a piece of wood, tosses it into the water.
And then defies all logic. That heavy axe head, it floats. It makes you wonder, what else are we missing, you know?
It's like he's saying, hey, sometimes the answer isn't about forcing things. It's about looking at things differently, trusting in something beyond what we can see.
Beautifully put. It's a good reminder that there are these unseen forces all around us just waiting to be tapped into. But okay, let's talk about a different kind of challenge. Elisha versus an entire army. I mean, talk about an obstacle. The king of Aram wants him captured, sends his troops to Dothan.
And Elisha's servant, he wakes up to this. Horses, chariots, soldiers everywhere. I'd be freaking out.
You and me both. It's that primal fear, right? Being completely outnumbered. But Elisha cools a cucumber. He tells his servant, don't worry, we've got more on our side than they do. Then he does something incredible. He prays for his servant's eyes to be opened.
And what he sees next is just, wow, the hillside is on fire, but not literally. It's this celestial army, glowing chariots, horses of fire, an army of angels, basically, ready to defend them.
Imagine that shift from pure terror to witnessing something so powerful, so awe-inspiring. It's a reminder that there's a whole other dimension at work, one we can't always see.
It's like Elisha. Through his faith, he can pull back the curtain, show us what's really going on. But here's the kicker. He doesn't unleash this heavenly army on them. Instead, he asks God to strike the Aramean army blind.
Which, on the surface, seems kind of strange, right? Why not just wipe them out? But Elisha's playing a different game. By blinding them, he's not just disarming them, he's creating an opportunity for mercy.
It's like he's saying true strength isn't always about brute force. Sometimes it's about choosing compassion, even when the other side is coming at you with everything they've got.
And he doesn't stop there. He leads these blind soldiers, totally vulnerable, right into Samaria. Talk about a power move. But instead of attacking the Israelites, following Elisha's lead, they offer the soldiers food, water.
It's like that radical hospitality we talked about earlier. It flips the script. Shows us that empathy doesn't have to stop at enemy lines.
It takes the story beyond just another military victory. It becomes about something much bigger. This power of compassion to transform even the most entrenched conflicts.
It's amazing how these stories show us how powerful this guy Elisha is, but also how he can be strong and merciful, sometimes in the same story. But things take a turn, don't they, when we get to this last part? We see just how awful war can be when Samaria gets besieged.
Sieges were brutal back then. The city's completely trapped, cut off. People are starving. The source material really lays it all out there.
It's rough. They even talk about people selling donkey heads for crazy prices because they're so desperate for food. It makes you realize how vulnerable cities were, even with those big walls, if they couldn't get supplies.
And it gets even worse. There's that story, hard to even imagine, about mothers who are so desperate they resort to cannibalism. I mean, that's how bad it got. War leaves these invisible scars. It's not just about who wins and loses on the battlefield.
It's about the human cost.
Yeah.
And it's in the middle of all this suffering that this one woman goes to the king begging for help. She made this awful pact with another mother because they were so desperate. But the king, he just loses it.
He's totally overwhelmed. He's supposed to be the leader, protect his people, but he can't do anything. So he lashes out at Elisha, even though Elisha's the one who's been doing all these amazing things.
It's almost ironic, right? Elisha, this guy who can perform miracles, bring people back from the dead even. But here, he's up against something that even he seems to struggle with.
And that, I think, is what makes these stories so real. We see miracles, yeah, but we also see the pain, the brokenness. It's just part of life, too. They're not afraid to show us the hard stuff, the things we don't always have easy answers for.
So we're left wrestling with these big questions. What does faith really mean when things are falling apart? How do we define power, especially in the face of suffering?
These stories, they're like a tapestry. They've got it all. Miracles and suffering, incredible power, and the very real consequences of human choices. They don't give us all the answers. They make us think.
It's been quite a journey, this deep dive into 2 Kings. We've seen incredible acts of faith, moments of deep sorrow, and everything in between. And as we wrap up, I'm curious, what stays with you? What did you find most impactful? Because even after thousands of years, these stories still have the power to challenge us, to make us think about how we see the world and our place in it.
Welcome to Charlie and Mia's podcast. We're embarking on an exciting journey to read through the entire Bible in just 1 year. Every day, we dive into Scripture, exploring its meanings and how it applies to our lives today. We invite you to join us on this incredible adventure of learning and discovery. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode.